What's going on, everybody? We are back. This is the season finale of John Dudley Speaks, the podcast, season 1. I'm going to be taking some time off during the summer, but I had to cover this next one that we're doing, X-Men 97, season 1. I'm so excited to get into this. This is going to be a real fun episode, just getting into the overarching themes of this season and just getting into like the animation style. There's so much to talk about. I don't want to waste time, but yeah, I'm very excited to have gone through all these episodes with you guys. This first season of doing the podcast has been a lot of fun. It's been a great time just like figuring out what it is I'm good at, what it is I like talking about, and yeah, thanks for taking this ride with me. So without further ado, let's get into the news segment. So, before we get into X-Men 97, I just want to cover these 3 things. First and foremost, Francis Ford Coppola, the director of the Godfather trilogy, of Apocalypse Now, legend, total icon. He just had his debut at the Cannes Film Festival of Megalopolis. Now, if you haven't heard, which honestly, you probably haven't, because like this is deep into the weeds on film Twitter, and it's kind of got its own lore to it. But Megalopolis is a passion project that Coppola has been working on, I believe, for the last decade or so. And I think he spent about $100 million of his own money to get it not only shot and get the budget like secured and have all these people sign on to it, and Adam Driver, Aubrey Plaza, I believe, is in it as well. It's getting at 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, like off the bat. It's being called like batshit crazy and a mess, and I think it's really interesting. It makes me want to see it more. I've been hearing about the weirdness behind the scenes. I think Coppola, it's really, it's fairly odd what he what he ended up doing on set. I think he smoked weed for like 8 hours a day or 3 hours a day, and would then show up and then just film stuff, and they didn't have any shot lists prepared. Apparently it was a complete disaster shooting it. But the movie itself is a very weird experience. Every critic that I've seen has posted a review about it, has said it's either the greatest thing you will ever see, and it subverts film expectations and it completely defies convention, while other people say it's like a scattered work of a man that just didn't know what to focus on. So in that case, and the distribution on the reviews are like highly volatile. There's nobody that's like giving this review like giving it a 3.5. They're either giving it a 1 out of 5 or they're giving it a 5 out of 5. I think the letterbox distribution on the app is like insane right now. So kind of makes me want to see it more. So we'll see. I think it comes out in the fall. So more to come on that. I'm not sure if I'll cover it. It might be a little bit too heady to actually get into. But moving on, Fast and Furious 11 is another nugget of news that we got this week. For context, Fast X, as I should say, had a $340 million budget. Now, I know probably $100 million of that accounts for COVID, production reschedules, all that stuff. But still, when you're left with $240 million, say, like that's what they spent on production and, hiring all these big stars from Hollywood and doing these gigantic set pieces, they only made like roughly, I want to say, their worldwide gross, I'm going to look that up right now. The worldwide gross on it was, I think, 700 million, 715 million. That's bad for a $340 million movie. That's actually bad. So that kind of makes sense, because the news that we got for Fast and Furious 11 is that they're going to take a scaled down approach and try and bring it back to its roots. I think it's really interesting because we were supposed to get Fast 10, 11, and 12. And it was all conditional on box office results, right? So that really tells me that Vin Diesel and the producers behind Fast X really did not perform as well as the studio thought that they would. And they're kind of just ready to pull the plug on the Fast and Furious franchise. So I think they're trying to do Fast and Furious 11 for like around 100 to 200 million, which is just, that means no more gigantic set pieces and stunts, which I don't know if they could pull that off. I don't know if they could pull off a street racing movie after literally going to space 2 movies ago. So that one, I think we get that next year. So they're supposed to shoot that. And then there's also the case of like the rape allegations against Vin Diesel that they're being very quiet on how they're handling that, which I would expect considering he is the lead of the franchise. But I would not be surprised if what happens, and this is just my hot take, Fast and Furious 11 final main installment, Dom is done, and because I think audiences are also kind of tired of seeing Vin Diesel in this role. They're going to pivot to Dwayne Johnson, and we're just going to get the Hobbs movies. Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Reyes, Hobbs and Shaw 2. I could watch those movies forever because they're actually pretty decent. Like Hobbs and Shaw was a pretty decent movie, and it just had a different flair than and wasn't as dramatic as the Fast and Furious movies. So it was a little bit more self-aware and self-referential than the Fast and Furious movies can be, at least like these late period ones like 8, 9, and 10. So yeah, I do think that they're going to pivot away, and they just kind of been slowly pulling the plug in each morsel of news that they release. But then last but not least, great news on this one. Everybody remembers Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Well, he's getting a live-action show as Spider-Man Noir on Prime Video, which I wish it wasn't on Prime Video. I feel like HBO could have taken this up and really just made it, like, prestigify it, basically. But I think Prime will do a good job. Nicolas Cage seems very excited about it. So, like, I think, taking that character from an animated setting, placing him into the live action setting, getting to see Nicolas Cage actually be this version of Spider-Man in a noir setting show, the 30s pastiche and aesthetic is going to work really well for him because he's just going to throw everything at the wall when it comes to this performance. I can really see him diving all in because I think we're well past the point where Nicolas Cage was broke and it was taking literally every single role thrown at him. Now he just does whatever he wants. So I think if he's going to sign on to something, he's not going to do it unless he finds merit in it. And he's said that recently in interviews as well. So if he's all in, I'm all in. So great news on that front. Just to wrap up, we got Megalopolis, Fast and Furious 11, Spider-Man Noir, lots of cool things coming our way. But I'm going to get into the episode now. Let's talk about X-Men 97. Now, I would love to play the intro right now, but I could sing it. I could also do that. Like the... I could do that, but I don't want to hurt your guys' ears while I do that. So I'm just going to start this off by saying X-Men 97 is the finest piece of media that we've ever had that is representing the mutants. And that includes the Fox X-verse. That includes, honestly, I think this might be a hot take, but I think it's better than Logan. I think it portrays the X-Men and all their characterizations in a manner that speaks to what was originally on the page in the comics, speaks to what was originally out there on the animated series in their 5-season run, and honestly pulls from the themes that the the original Fox X-Men movies, the first two, and then the Matthew Vaughn and Days of Future Past movies did quite tastefully. Starting off with the screen time, I think that we've often started to get very comfortable with seeing Hugh Jackman's Wolverine like everywhere when it comes to X-Men. But that does not necessarily mean that he is as important of a player. He's not. Wolverine in the comics is a supporting character, right? And the Fox X-Men movies really centered around Hugh Jackman because he was such an affable star, and he had that muscularity to his performance that he could bring in a new audience just from his appearance. Animation allows for you to play around with that a lot more, and so does comics. So you don't have to worry about this, having a attractive leading man. You have to just focus in on the camaraderie and connection of the team, like we got in the comics. So I really loved that this show, with such a great ensemble, and the thing is, with X-Men, you're dealing with the best ensemble in Marvel Comics. Avengers, that's B tier in the comics. The primetime players are the X-Men. They're the ones that are basically, they may not be celebrities in the world, but they are going to space, they're saving people, they're doing far more than just having these mutant wars that we see in the movies. They're actually like probably the most powerful beings that anybody has ever like encountered in the Marvel Comics universe. So I love how X-Men 97 is able to capture that, but also give each character time to shine. And what I mean by that is we often saw Scott and Jean kind of being used as supporting characters to Wolverine's story. We get the inverse here. And before you say like, oh, well, that's not actually like equal spreading of screen time, I think it is, because it's putting Wolverine in the place that he needs to be as a component to the story. Scott and Jean, they are the leaders in this iteration. Magneto is such an important character that deserves to have the front and center viewpoint of anti-hero and not main antagonist. And then when it comes to characters like Beast, who I feel like have been sidelined, Morph, who's never even been put in the movies, at least not to my knowledge, and then having characters like Jubilee and Sunspot having their own subplots, Storm having a gigantic amount of growth. This is written from a perspective that cares about making sure we care about these characters. So yeah, I think being able to spread that screen time not only gets us invested in what their main goal is in terms of like, getting Genosha to be recognized by the UN, or just getting Sentinels like completely eradicated to save the mutant kind, basically. That becomes a focus, but it really is all under this basis of like we want to present these characters to you, the audience, as they were in the comics, as they were originally in the animated series, without feeling like this entry point is steeped in so much lore and baggage from comics, TV, and the movies. So I think they did such an amazing job being able to make it so accessible, but at the same time, like, have all of the dramatic weight that is associated with these characters often in all of media, like have it be the focal point. Rogue is another example. Rogue and Gambit, unbelievable how they handled their story. Gambit, for instance, I think is one of the most sidelined characters in all of Fox media, and I think he was supposed to be played by Channing Tatum at one point, but the movie went through development hell. They killed it, and We ended up getting Taylor Kitsch as Gambit in, or I think he played Gambit in X-Men Origins Wolverine. All I remember is that it was horrible. And it just, this is an iteration of this character that actually embraces the loony, kooky parts of the comics. And, I think at the time in the Fox X-Men movies, it was necessary to carry on with a grounded approach. But you look back at that, and there's a lot of subtext that they ended up, putting towards the forefront. But they missed the appeal of the X-Men comics themselves. Not saying that those movies weren't appealing, because I love a lot of those movies, but they really did miss the essence of, and the boldness of, at least, the X-Men at their best. And that is the yellow spandex. That is them completely just flexing their powers and not feeling ashamed to use them, not feeling like they're horrifying, but they're actually heroes at the end of the time, or at the end of the day, basically. It's a tricky balance, especially when you're doing that on film. But when it comes to television, and the fact that Marvel also hired a huge writer's room for this, and they had a showrunner, they get a little bit more bandwidth to play around with actual arcs. And I think, circling back to Rogue and Gambit, we got to see those arcs fulfilled in a very tasteful way that just a film or a 6-part Disney Plus miniseries just doesn't do all that often. So it's a very good sign of what's to come. Looking at something like powers, for instance, I know I'd spoken briefly about that, but the powers here, they're actually demonstrated in a very equal way. So Wolverine, I think the big complaint about Wolverine in this show was that, we're not seeing too much of him. They're sidelining him and he's just pining after Jean. But I know the creator of the show, Bo DeMeo, he tweeted, "For those of you waiting for a Wolverine episode, here it is." We got one later in the season where he just goes nuts. He's flying through the air. He's destroying Sentinels. He's got Gambit. I think at one point in the show, Gambit heats his claws, and he's able to use his claws with Gambit's power. It's awesome. But then on top of that, you get Morph shifting into the Hulk, shifting into Mr. Fantastic, and I had a blast with seeing what they were capable of doing. Jean using the Phoenix Force, I know that's controversial because Fox screwed it up so many times, but I like the Phoenix Force in this. I think that it's pulled off in a way that's, that actually pays respect to the comics without diving too much into their dramatic aspect of the Phoenix Force. And because I feel like those movies, they really try to sell us on the idea that the Phoenix, it's a powerful being and it's draining Jean of her life force and it's causing evil things to happen. I'm tired of seeing that story. I just want to see her channel the Phoenix and use her powers, and honestly, that's what they did. So in regards to powers, I know that I'm missing a lot here because there's so many characters, but we got to see a very tasteful, well executed version of the X-Men that doesn't shy away from saying, hey, this character may not be as popular in the canon, but we're gonna make sure that they have their big moment too. So Sunspot, he has a big moment too. Magneto, even though he's carrying a lot of the season, when Charles shows up here, Charles still he immerses us back into his world and how he utilizes his powers, and that's just really exciting to see because even though you've got Magneto dominating most of this season with the dialogue around Genosha and the dialogue around, his own trauma as well, having Charles come in to match that same energy makes it all feel like just a cohesive piece of television. So yeah, absolutely loved that. Looking at how they brought it from the page to the screen, just visually, this is animation at its best. I know I had spoken about Invincible season 2 and how I loved the animation, and I do, but this is you know, I don't want to compare both shows because they're both made differently. And Invincible, I think, had a lot more expectation on it than X-Men 97 had. But you can really tell where the animators were given time to complete this. That's not to say Invincible looks bad. There are portions of it where you could tell that the animators were being overworked. And with this one, maybe there were animators being overworked, but this does look like it's been in development for a long time, and it shows. Like the art decoration and the direction really allows for us to just engage with the material. Each frame looks like a panel directly shot from the comics. So, the adamantium skeleton, for instance, that I believe is a direct panel from the storyline that they are running, running this like plot line from. And then I believe the Goblin Queen that they pulled from Inferno. That's those are the same panels from the comics. I think Storm's encounter with the adversary, I believe that was also pulled extracted directly from the comics, and that just proves to me that the people behind this, that they had intention to display the weirder sides of X-Men because they knew that they would capture our attention in terms of like the heart, the actual density of the themes and the characters. They would capture that so that we could digest the weirder stuff. I looked at my wife while we were watching some of this, and I'm like, "This is weird." Like, we're doing Mojo right now. Like, if you don't have any context as to who Mojo is, like, you're gonna watch that and be like, "This is weird." But also, I like Roberto and Jubilee. They're really good characters, and I want to see how this is supposed to tie in the overarching theme of letting the past go. Something like that. It's very simplistic in how it's delivered to us, but the thing is, it's executed so perfectly that we can't take our eyes off the screen. And the animation is just a vessel at that point to allow us to, like, actually experience it. And because of that, we're able to appreciate how they vacillate between styles too. Because this is a show that its writing is very poignant, it's very dense, it has a lot of meaning, and just there is a tidal wave shift when the episode 5 Remember It hits the screen. I remember looking at my wife, this like kind of like, what did we just watch something that was like top 5 Marvel content ever? Because it really was. It was telling a complete story, but culminating several arcs across the X-Men animated series, across the comics, paying off a lot of themes that were in the original X-Men films, and then just stockpiling them into one episode that had the emotional punch that it had because the writers had done all of the groundwork, had done all of like the nitty gritty stuff to make sure that we were connected to what was going on. So yeah, Remember It, one of the best episodes of comic book television probably ever made. But the fact that we're able to look at it and be like, this is kind of written like a soap opera and has a little bit of a tilt that leans into anime a little bit. We're able to kind of see past that and not look at it for, oh, this kind of sounds like a soap opera. Soap opera. It's like a little corny. We're able to see past that and recognize it for what the foundation is able to do to that style, right? So the foundation being so strong, it's able to prop up those, little glimpses into soap opera and anime and not make them feel as, cheesy as they would on maybe a lesser written show. It, it doesn't feel like we're, like the writers are imposters in that arena either, because they're paying tribute to these styles while also like doing the heavy lifting, which a lot of TV shows nowadays that are produced by like blockbuster studios are not willing to do because they want the cheaper end of it is to accelerate the growth, and then that connection comes after they accelerate that character's growth. But if you take the time to grow your characters like this show does, you're going to have people that are going to be just waiting for every decision that that character makes. So I know I definitely like I definitely went flying off the handle about this. Like I'm still baffled about what I saw when I watched this. It is an incredible television show that works really hard to merge different eras of Marvel together. And also, like, the look forward here, like, Marvel has their X-Men now. All Marvel has to do is keep making X-Men 97, keep that separate, but also look at this show as a guiding light to what they can do with the X-Men live action. Don't merge it. If they merge it, that will ruin this. But if they keep it separate, they make their own X-Men, but have writers that have similar mindsets to Bo DeMeo and his group of writers on X-Men 97. Pull that idea in when it comes to how to approach these characters, then you have another audience that is going to be willing to stick with the growth that they experience over the course of whatever saga is coming next. I guess the mutant saga will be after Secret Wars, but really Marvel needs to use this as like the benchmark for mutants in the MCU. And maybe that'll be able to garner some support back when people see that the top tier, S tier characters are actually being done justice. Because right now, even the B tier comic characters are not being done justice. Doctor Strange and, Captain Marvel, we should be more excited about them. I should be more excited that there's a Captain America movie coming out next year. And honestly, I really don't care. And that's because Marvel has done a really crap job at building connection. And if you look back to Infinity War, the reason we cared about that culmination is because we were with Tony through those 10 years as we got to know his character more. And the thing is, X-Men 97 is the first time in a while, without Guardians 3 and Spider-Man No Way Home, that they actually, Marvel did the work to just say, we're going to make sure that these characters are the forefront of this story. And everything that comes from that will be stemmed from the characters and their conflicts and their inner torment. Their worries basically about mutant kind. It'll all stem from those themes. Everything comes together so much easier that way instead of trying to work backwards into something that sounds poignant and, effective. So I've definitely gone, I know I've already said this, but I've definitely gone way more than I thought I would about the themes of this show. It's just, watch it for yourself. X-Men 97, it's incredible. Truly one of the best works of Marvel television, Marvel anything, really. It's an artful, energetic, emotionally resonant piece of animation, and it's as powerfully written as it is visually potent. But it also pays respects to the X-Men of before, while also paving the way for the X-Men that are to come. So, yeah, that's what I think. I highly recommend. It's truly a wondrous experience. My favorite line delivery is Magneto in episode 5. Do not be afraid. The voice actors here are incredible. They are, and this is what should happen more on big budget blockbuster animated shows. Hire voice actors. We don't need to have big celebrities coming in to do what voice actors have been known to be doing since the Saturday morning cartoon days. So having a lot of these voice actors that came back from the original series to voice some of the same characters, some different ones in X-Men 97, a huge win for fans because we're actually getting better performances because of that. So yeah, that's all I got on X-Men 97. I'll just give you guys a couple recs, and then we're done for the season. I'll be taking some time off, spending some time with family after that. So I probably won't be back on the podcast until maybe, probably September. You know, you expect me to cover a lot when I come back. But before I get there, saw The Fall Guy in theaters. It is so much fun. Go see it. It is a great experience. I can't believe that they're already putting it on digital. It's kind of ridiculous. It's only been out for 2 weeks, and it's already on digital. I think they're saying that it bombed. I wouldn't say that it bombed. It just did. I mean, I guess it bombed if it only made it back its budget. That's always considered a miss, but it shouldn't have. It's so much fun. It's an ode to stuntmen. It's an ode to movie making, the love and passion that people have for just creating spectacle, just for us to enjoy. I mean, it's a really amazing profession that a lot of these guys are in when it comes to stunt choreography and visual effects, and David Leitch did such a great job at paying tribute to that while also giving us a really fun romantic comedy story. So Gosling and Blunt, they're so much fun. They're fantastic. So yeah, go watch it. Then my last recommendation, Outer Range Season 2, it's back. Josh Brolin out on the ranch dealing with science fiction mysteries. It's so good. It's really good. I can't really say much without giving away stuff, but the main premise is that he finds a hole in the middle of the this. I guess it's not that simple. I can't even think about how to explain it. He finds a hole, and it's some kind of psychological science fiction. He keeps having visions and stuff. It's hard to explain. Just watch it. Josh Brolin's great. But yeah, I will be seeing you guys, or you'll be hearing from me in a couple months after I'm off vacation. I'll be talking about summer 2024 television. The Bear is coming this summer. We've got House of the Dragon, The Boys, The Acolyte is coming too. So just best believe I'm going to be covering all of those in some kind of supersized episode when I come back. But in the meantime, check out my YouTube. I'm going to be constantly updating videos on there, just music reviews, rewatches, all kinds of stuff. There's going to be so much going on. And also follow me on jduds.substack.com. Lots of reviews coming that way. Going to have some more series coming throughout the rest of the summer. So stay tuned. Even though I'm going away for a little bit on the podcast, still going to be active. But I really appreciate your support. I will talk to you later. Bye.